Slinging seeds, sliding on into home, throwing heat, buddy, we're going, gone. If you gotta go down, you gotta go down, swinging, slinging seeds. It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time, slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Slinging Seeds. I am your host, Kyle Evans, and across the table from me is my co-host, Doug Adams, and our special guest today is Mr. Jeff Klepacz. Doug, will you go ahead and give us a little bit of a background on Jeff?
Yeah, so I've known Jeff for probably 20 years now. One of the best umpires I've ever seen. I like when he shows up to the game because you know it's going to be done right. Hall of Famer as a player, 3 different spots. Hall of Famer as an umpire as well. He's done a lot of really, really good stuff over the years, and we just wanted to have him down here. We don't really get to umpire side much, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So he played at Wilbur Wright, played at Sinclair, and then played for the University of Dayton.
Yeah.
You know, as a player, and then he's been an umpire for going on 40 years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. It's funny because I took the umpire class through Phil Durkee when I was a freshman at Sinclair, and I was the only baseball player that passed the class. So,
That's really, really cool.
yeah,
So, like I said, I want to thank you for coming on, and I think it's going to be fun to tell your story.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming as well. Now, doing the pitch clock now,
Yeah, that's fun.
having fun operating that.
Yeah, I filled in for 20 years for the Dragons from 2001 to 2022, and I always told my wife that I wanted to stop at 20 years, and I wanted to stop before they tell me you're not good enough to do it anymore. And in 2020, we had the COVID, so they shut down the season. Then the next season, 2021, it was a shortened season and nobody got hurt or injured, so I didn't fill in. And then in 2022, I said, going to be my last day. And then Major League Baseball took over the minor leagues. And so you actually had to get registered with Major League Baseball as an employee. And so you would get your check from Major League Baseball when you worked for them. And there was it was maybe in April or May. I was heading to work a doubleheader for Bob Giuliano at Oak Grove, and Major League Baseball called me and they said, "Hey," he says, "can you come tonight, work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the Clippers?" And it's funny because if I was younger, 10 years younger, I would have called Bob and canceled and drove to Columbus. But I'm sitting there going, I got to get up for work at 4 o'clock the next day and stuff like that. So I told him I couldn't make it because of my work schedule. And then 2 weeks later, I'm working the pitch clock, and one of the umpires gets drilled in the 8th inning with a 98-mile fastball in the mask. Catcher doesn't get a glove on it, and he staggered, and I knew he had a concussion. And they called me the next day and said, "Hey, can you fill in for the Dragons?" I said, "Yeah." And I made it my last professional game umpire. It was game number 70, and Dragons take pictures of you while you're umpiring. And I got a real nice picture at home of me in position C in the middle of the infield, and Ellie De La Cruz is leading off right behind me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice.
That's a really cool picture.
Really nice.
So one of the things I wanted to ask is, because with your experience and your wide range of what you've done with summer baseball at a young age, high school baseball, college baseball with the A10, and then professional baseball,
Yeah.
what is it like to bounce back and forth? Because that would feel like that would be really
I tell you what was really funny. There was one time it might have been during the umpire, I call it the umpire crisis in 2006. During that season, before the season started, the president of the Midwest League, George Spilius, called me, and he says, "I wanted you to get together with Terry Green," because at the time, Terry Green and I were the only ones that filled in. He says, "We got a problem," and he says, "The Minor League Umpires Association, we're in a stalemate." And he says, "I need you guys to get together and get some names together so we can have a crew." And so me and Terry ended up getting a crew together of 5 guys, and we worked the whole first half of the season for the Dragons in 2006. Matter of fact, we're having a 20th anniversary this year. We rented the suite for the Dragons, and 4 out of 5 of us are still here. And Terry Green passed away about 14 years ago, but we got a cardboard cutout made of him, and we're going to have that with us. But it was funny because I'd go out and work a Dragons game. We broke it down into 2-game series because we're all 40 years and older. And when you work like a professional umpire, you get a little sore because you're only working 2-man. And so we broke it down in 2-game series back then. It was 4-game series. So we had 2 different crews working. And I'd go out and work 2 Dragons games. And then the next day, Bob sends me to Miamisburg Rice Field. I'm working a 9-year-old game. And these coaches are yelling at me and screaming at me. And I go, only if they knew that yesterday I was behind the dish. Ben Lively was on the mound throwing 97. And I'm going, this guy thinks I'm terrible. And so, but it's just, it's amazing. You bounce around. And then I think one of the writers wrote a story on that. And he says, he's working a game for the Dragons. And the next day he's working a 9-year-old game. He says, but you just, as an umpire, I took my work ethic as a baseball player and an athlete, and I applied that to umpiring. And so, Phil Durkee always said, you never have to tell anybody how good you are. You know why? They all know.
Yeah.
They all know. And anybody that tells you, how good they are, question their resume. But just go out there and work hard, learn how to do it right all the time. It doesn't matter if I'm working a U13 game with my brother like I did the other day. I work it just like working a high school, college, or professional game, because a lot of guys get lazy at that level. And then that will translate into the upper levels. Before you know it, you're just playing merry-go-round in the middle of the infield. And see, I always say, when I worked with my brother, I had a play, I ran into third, it was my only runner, and I took the best angle, and I got to the outside on a tag play, and I called the guy safe. And the coach that was over here asked my brother, can you change his call? And he goes, where do you want him to be? He was on the outside looking at the play. And so we do what the pros do, and there's not too many guys that work that way. And you can see that in high school games.
For sure.
Guys will stand right behind the pitcher's mound, and we call it play merry-go-round, and they'll just turn. You don't float to a base, you don't float back to a base. And that's what I pride myself on as an umpire, doing it the right way all the time.
No, I mean, that's great. And, and you do see that here and there. You see the kind of guys that are fully dedicated to this and put their whole heart in it. And then you see some of the guys that, maybe lack a little bit behind, but try to be respectful to everybody, out there on that field, because they're the ones making the calls. It's their judgment. And it's really, great to hear like the amount of wide experiences that you have. My curiosity comes from, where did it all start? Baseball in general.
It was funny. I was 8 years old, and I'm playing basketball in the back alley with my brother. And we'd always just, when we were growing up, all you did was play sports, sun up to sundown. It didn't matter. We invented a game. There was a famous recipe across the street from our house, and we spray painted a little box on the wall. And when we'd have 2 or 3 people, we invented a game called bunt and run. And you'd have one guy pitch and one guy play first base and the other guy bat. And that's how I learned how to bunt. I even bunted left-handed. I was a right-handed batter. And we would bunt, you get the first base and you get a point. And we play that kind of game. It was just so amazing. I mean, I was in the back alley shooting basketball with my brother, and this guy come walking down the alley by the name of Rick Wilson. And he goes, hey, Jeff, well, I'm going down to Washington Park to sign up for baseball. I said, really? He said, yeah, Little League, Jess Haynes. So went in and said, Mom, hey, we're going to go down to Washington Park and sign up. And back then, they didn't have T-ball, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so my brother was 2 years younger than me. So he couldn't come down and sign up. So we went down, signed up, and it was so amazing. They had the draft, and the head coach from Burger Chef called the house. You just thought I got drafted in the big league. It was amazing, but it just all boom, boom, boom. I went from playing for Burger Chef, won a city championship with Burger Chef, went to play for Willie for Shamrock Athletic Club. We won a National League championship. Went to high school, won a city championship. Went to St. Clair, won two championships. Played in the AA League for 7 years. We won a city state, and we went to the NBA World Series in 1987, which was just phenomenal. I mean, you go into this is AA, this is unlimited age, and so you're playing against guys that were, former major leaguers, but I've been blessed because I've been a champion at every level, and then was fortunate enough to have people around me to keep me positive in the game.
So one of my favorite stories, like I said, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus.
I will.
Okay. One of my favorite stories is about you is there's a certain play on a double squeeze from second base.
Oh
that
yeah,
happens
yeah,
a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
And you're the only umpire I know for a fact that tells coaches, like, you'll tell them when you know their reputation for doing this
Oh, yeah.
and cutting third base.
Oh,
And
yeah.
just so you know, if you bunt, I'm watching third.
I mean, a lot of people don't understand is you got runners on second and third, and there's a lot of coaches out there that teach cheating. And I'm a big believer in excellence is only attainable one way. You earn it.
Yeah.
And that's a subtitle of my book, my autobiography. It's Show Me the Ball, and then the subtitle is Excellence is only attainable the old-fashioned way. You earn it. And guys will double squeeze. And anytime I get in a game, and you're working a two-man in high school, not college anymore, but the guy will bunt, they'll come in to field it, and the plate umpire and the base umpire usually don't pay attention to the guy on second base. And they'll cut the corner. But anytime I get in a situation like that and I see a bunt and I'll just watch them, and I've seen guys see me and then they run right for the base. And I know there's a couple coaches that I caught them, a couple high school coaches. And one of them's a Hall of Famer, and I'm not going to call him out, but he knows who he is. He knows who he is. Might strike you down with a thunderbolt. You
Yeah.
know who I mean? Okay.
I just always found that amusing. So a little bit is obviously your playing career. You played at Sinclair. You got to
Yeah.
play at the University of Dayton. Tell us a little about your time in college baseball and what that
Well,
experience was
the
like.
whole game has changed nowadays. I mean, we would have fall baseball, and then we'd go into conditioning, and then we get ready for our spring trip, and then you play your spring season, then you go right into summer ball, Memorial Day, and it was so funny. I mean, I'm my freshman year at Sinclair, and I go to play in the AA League, and I'm playing with Hall of Famer Steve Cross. He was a great guy. I played for 5 out of 7 years with him, and every year I played with him, we had winning seasons. There was only one season we had a losing record when I played for the Dayton Indians. We started out 5-1, we ended up 10-25. Actually, that was the best year I had hitting. I hit 385 because we were losing, and nobody would throw their best pitcher. So I hit 385 that year off the bad pitchers. But and then you do your summer ball, and then you take a few months off, and you go back to fall baseball. And it's changed now. It's a full-time job for these kids. I remember I was working a club game. Bob sent me out to Wright State to work a club game for Wright State. And I'm talking to this kid, big, muscular first baseman. And I said, you seem like a pretty good ball player. I says, how come you're playing club ball? He goes, well, Jeff, he says, I'm here to get a degree in engineering. And he says, you can't get a degree like that and play baseball in college anymore because it's a full-time job. He goes, I had 2 Big Ten scholarships. And he says, I'm going to pay my $250 and play my 25 club games, and I still have fun. I said, well, that's cool. But the whole thing has changed nowadays. I mean, it's a different animal from when I did it. I mean, and you see it with the parents. Parents are obsessed with scholarships and stuff. I mean, I made sure my kids played a sport every season, and I wasn't gonna. I've seen guys burn their kids out. They go to high school. I saw a couple kids that were pitching on the varsity baseball team at one of the high schools, and they quit after their freshman year because they were burned out. And so it's a total different animal, but I've been blessed. I mean, I had 2 professional tryouts. I had an invitation-only tryout with the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1986. And it was funny because I'm in the press box and Sean Penner's in there. Sean's about my age. Sean got drafted by the Pirates. And I said, who's the guy that drafted? And he goes, Jim Maxwell. I said, I got a letter with his name on it. Jim Maxwell on my invitation only.
Mhm.
But I was one of those guys that I was a singles and doubles hitter. Foot speed was okay. I ran a 6.8 60. But for somebody my height, my skills, I needed to run something like Sean Penner, 6'2".
Yeah.
You know, because if I was 6'2", 6'8" would be good.
Yeah.
But I'm 5'9", so.
Yeah.
But no, I've been blessed. I just baseball it's helped me encapsulate everything I do right now.
That's awesome. And I mean, looking at your resume, I mean, there's a lot of impressive things that you see, and especially with us talking about the officiating. How did you originally get into officiating and umpiring?
Well, I was taking Phil Durkee's Ohio High School umpire class. You know, we all took it as a blow-off class. You didn't get 3 credit hours. We didn't care. Well, I ended up being the only guy that passed it. You know, all the other guys on the baseball team didn't pass it. And then I started doing some summer ball while I was still playing, and before you know it, I'm out of college, and so I'm not playing anymore. And I played another 2 years in the Double-A league, and I was getting good reviews from Phil Durkee and Mike Gallagher and Joe Gladner, all the big guys, and Terry Green. And they said, Durkee said, "You going to go to umpire school?" I said, "Yeah, I think I'm going to umpire school." I was 25. He goes, "That's a good age." And I decided 1989, I retired the same day Mike Schmidt retired. I said, "That's it." And I played my last game and retired. And so he took all the headlines from the newspapers. But no, I had a really nice career in the Double-A league. I hit over 330. I played on a championship team, went to a World Series. Just, you know, you get to a point where you say, you know, I really don't want to play anymore. I was retired for 3 or 4 years, and a friend of mine asked me to come and play in the senior league because I was 30. And I went out and played with him. And I went 4 for 4. I was playing shortstop. I was a step slow, and I hit a triple, and I went, this isn't anymore. It's not fun anymore, you know. So I didn't go back to playing. So, but it just, you know, it's one of those things where you work hard at everything, and you do your best, and that's what I instilled in my kids.
With you doing that, it obviously led up to you eventually officiating 5 OHSAA state
Yeah,
championships.
it's amazing because somebody like Phil Durkee, it took him 10 years by the time he got released from AAA to get a state championship. And it took me almost 10 years to get a tournament game in high school. And what's funny is I was working college baseball before I was working high school baseball. And it was just one of those things because, you know, there's a lot of politics involved and people vote for you, they don't vote for you, and they give you a bad grade, they give you a good grade. But it's been nice. The first game I worked, and I can't remember what year it was, 2005 maybe. I worked a plate game at Cooper Stadium where the Clippers used to play. Was it Cooper Stadium?
I believe so.
Yeah, it was all AstroTurf. I worked my first plate game, and then the next year they moved to Huntington Bank, and I worked first base at my next state. And I worked Moeller Division I championship game. It was their coach's first state championship. Then you go by, and you know you never know when you're going to get them. If you look at what I got them, there's no rhyme or reason why it took 5 years and then 7 years, and then I got selected this year to work my 5th state, and they want to put me at third base again. So I was hoping to get second base. That way I'd have the cycle, but I didn't get it. So, but it's okay. I got my 5th state this year.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Oh, and I got to work 2 league championships in the Midwestern Collegiate Conference back in, God, I can't remember. It's so long ago. And then I got the Great Midwest Conference championships. I didn't get to work anything in Atlantic 10 because I was winding down my college career back then when Dayton went to the Atlantic 10.
What I would like to ask now is, if you were going to give advice to somebody who wants to get into umpiring, what piece of advice would you give them as they get started? Or to a young umpire who has already started?
Well, I say number one, I'd say get with somebody who you can watch and learn and respect, because there's a lot of guys out there that they don't know what they're doing, and people tell people to do things and stuff. And I still work with guys that, you know, I'll go out on a fly ball and they won't go to second base. They'll go to third base, and I'll go, "Who's covering second?" You know, I went out on a fly ball. And then you got to see yourself on videotape, because you might think you look good, but you look bad. I mean, that was one of the things Johnny Berger always said about me. And I have a section in my book called Quotable Quotes. It's just a wide variety of quotes from different people all over the world. Johnny Berger was the DBC president, and he says, when you watch Jeff Klepacz work, he's very crisp and smooth in his mechanics. And if you can work on your mechanics and try to get crisp and smooth, people take a different perspective. You know, along with your dress and all that. I mean, there are guys that they won't wash their uniform, stuff like that. Shine your shoes. But you got to get with somebody that's going to mentor you in the correct way. And I was fortunate. I had Phil Durkee and Joe Gladura, Mike Gallagher, Terry Green. Terry Green graduated from umpire school. And those guys kind of were my mentors that taught me how to work. And if it wasn't, like Joe Gladder always says, if it wasn't for Phil Durkee just didn't teach you how to umpire. He taught you how to be an umpire. Because there's more to balls and strikes and fairs and fouls and safes and outs. There's handling situations and things of that nature. There's one funny thing that happened. Joe said this is how great Phil was. Phil should have been in the big leagues. He was coming out at AAA with a major league option, and for better or for worse, he got released. He was getting married, and they said, well, you got to go to winter ball, and he said, well, I'm getting married, and he got released. But there was a World Series game, and they were working 4-man, and Joe Gladder went out on a ball to right field, and he called it a ground rule double. That's why you got to settle in on a play, because if you're running, your eyes bounce and you don't see it. Well, the ball leaves the ballpark. It's a grand slam. Joe's going 2 bases, and he comes into Phil, and he says, Phil, he says, they said it left the ballpark. He said, it did by 20 feet. And he goes, well, what do you want me to do? He goes, I can save you. And this is how great Phil was. The manager comes up. He goes, what do you got? What do you got? He goes, he watches the bottom of the fence. I watch the top of the fence. I got a grand slam. And so they changed it from a ground rule double to a grand slam. But those are part of the things that being a good umpire is all about. You know, you got to know how to talk to a coach. He said, hey, that's interference. I said, listen, I'll give you the same play that I gave him.
Makes sense.
Yeah, stuff like that. You got to know how to talk to. I tell you, when I first started coming back from umpire school, I had 36 ejections that summer. I was dumping people left and right, just like the guys in the big leagues. And then you learn you got to be receptive. You got to talk to people. And I do the same thing in basketball. Coach says, hey, can you watch it? He's holding him. I said, yeah, I'll keep an eye on him. I can do that for you. In the old days, I would go, no, I'm not. I'm doing my job. You shut up. You can't do that anymore. You got, but as you get older, you learn.
I think that goes both ways, though. I mean, coaches can honestly take a better approach to some of the officials on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not speaking about us, but I've seen it.
Yeah.
From the dugout. It's
Yeah, I mean, I failed. I mean, I got into an umpire pretty good a couple months ago, early in the year, and I called him that night. He didn't answer. I called him the next day, and I gave him a heartfelt apology because I don't normally get there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I messed up. My bad. You know what I mean? And apologized to him because, I mean, I think you got to be real, right? We're all emotional. I mean,
Well, and a lot of guys want to scream from the dugout to get your reaction on a play and say, come on out and talk to me.
Yeah.
And then the one thing is they always want, can you show me what he did wrong? No, because guess what's going to happen? People are going to say, that's not what he did.
yeah.
That's not what he did. So that's like in basketball. If I give a kid a technical foul because he said, blow your blank and whistle, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, and I light him up. And my partner come to me and says, hey, Jeff, he wants to know what he said. And I says, he was very unsportsmanlike to me. Because if I say, this is what he said, the player's going to say, I never said that.
Yeah.
And so I was leaving my locker room one day, and this Betty from Jefferson goes, Jeff, what did that kid say to you? And I said, blankety blank. And he goes, he was over here telling us, Coach, he didn't say nothing to you. I said, see, he was unsportsmanlike to me.
Yeah.
So.
With that being said, I think you've been recruited. Obviously, we see your time at Sinclair and UD. We talk about recruiting quite a bit here on the podcast, and seeing the different styles of recruiting or how recruiting's changed. Can you tell us about what you see in recruiting today and how it's changed since you were recruited as a baseball player?
You've got. We didn't have showcases, and very seldom did you have a select team. I mean, there were some groups out there like the Dayton Astros with Ed Miller. He had a very select program in the Dayton Astros, and I think he played all his home games at Carroll, and he would travel all over the country. But back in the days, there was only 2 places you could play baseball, in the DABC or American Legion, and you couldn't play both. And now in the DABC, it kind of withered away and it's defunct, and it's just everything's select now. And if a kid's son doesn't make the select team, and his dad gets together with a bunch of the parents that they didn't make the select team, and they start their own team, and then they don't teach their kids anything. But it's all different now. And like I said, it's you've got showcases and all that stuff. We didn't have anything like that when I was playing.
Yeah.
You know, that's like in basketball. You got all these AAU basketball camps, and now it's about making money for a lot of these camps. When I was in high school, there was one basketball camp, and you had to get selected to go to it. That was 5-star. And we had a couple guys at my high school that had their 5-star T-shirts during basketball, and you knew they were top notch.
Yeah.
But now there's all kinds of camps and showcases and everything, and I never wanted my son to get into that. And so we always played on the summer team where he could play 20 to 25 games, and we tried to find feeder programs for Carroll because that's where he was going to go, and he had a lot of fun playing in that. And I didn't want to make it we're going on road trips every weekend and all that stuff. But these parents do it, man. They do it.
Yeah, they really do. So my next question would be, as a guy who played the game at a high level, played it for a long time, has seen it at a high level with umpiring as well, what advice would you give to the summer coaches and the high school coaches that you see on a day in and day out basis that you just wish you could say to them that you can't say while you're umpiring?
Wow, that's tough. Well, I can tell you this. Mike Sheets was my son's coach at Carroll, and he was a total different animal from high school to summer. Total different animal. And I liked the summer coach. He was laid back. He wasn't stressed out. And all the kids loved, my son loved him in the summertime. They were having fun. But he was very disciplined at Carroll. You had to take your helmet and you had to put it down. You couldn't throw your bat. You had to put your bat back. And, you know, kids run out in the field at high school for the most part. And there's some teams you go and they just walk out. I mean, when I played, you walked on the field. But I just think a lot of coaches are making it too technical. You know, when I was in high school, we had maybe 4 or 5 signals that my coach gave. And they got wristbands all over. They're calling pitches and everything like that. I mean, and I don't know if it's micromanaging, but it's one of those things where it's becoming a coach's game more than a player's game, in my opinion. Because I mean, I saw a guy call every pitch one game. If you guys got the headset thing?
We do not. So I still let my catchers call it.
Uh-huh.
I know it's kind of old school, but
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 25 years and I don't
Yeah.
want to change.
Yeah.
But I think that the number one, the conversation I enjoy the most is when my catcher makes a pitch that I disagree with.
Okay.
And then he comes back into the dugout, right? And I go, okay, what were you thinking? And he says, well, this. And sometimes they give me an answer that I hadn't thought of. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, cool, good
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
Or I'll go, well, what about this?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, because it's theirs.
Right.
If
right,
it belongs to them, they're going to take more pride in
Right.
what you're trying to teach them, and then they get better at it.
right.
Like, I mean, I haven't called a pitch for Alec Halter all season, and I
Oh,
won't.
wow.
You know what I mean? So I don't ever call a pitch at Dayton Christian. It's them. It's theirs.
Yeah.
I want my pitchers to be able to shake off. It's their game. It's not my ERA, right?
That way, their baseball intellect gets a little higher.
Exactly. Like, I haven't had an at-bat since 02, so it's not my stat. I always tell my pitchers, if you don't like the pitch the catcher's putting down, then shake off.
Shake him off.
Because it's your ERA, not ours.
Nicola Luce.
Right? Yeah.
Nicola Luce.
Yeah.
Right? It's your ERA, right? When we go on the website, it's going to say Jimmy has an ERA of 1.50. It doesn't
Right.
say Doug and Alec as the catcher and coach have an ERA of 1.50. That's
Exactly.
Jimmy's ERA. So,
Yeah.
so I don't call pitches. We do have the wristbands now, just because so many guys, there's so much video now
Yeah.
that I noticed guys were starting to pick up our signs a lot better
Really?
than they used to because
Wow.
they watch the video.
What do you think happened to us? We only had about 4 or 5 signs. We had punt, we had steal, we had take, we had fake bunt.
So now we have a grid that has, 60 different options. that
I
can say
didn't put
number.
my reading glasses on to read that.
That we had a problem with that, and so we made it colorful. So each one's a different color now.
Okay.
So if you see the number, it's a color. But yeah, so I don't call pitches for that reason, just because.
There's a lot of people that
But
all
they
these
do.
kids got the headsets now,
Yep.
and the coaches just tell them what pitch to throw.
Yeah.
And I understand technology, but like I talk with Eric Davis in the press box all the time, and he's like me. He's the same age as me. And we're old school. We still believe you should be able to take guys out of bases. I mean, everybody brings up Ray Fosse. Well, Ray Fosse played 13 years in the big leagues. How many years did you play?
Yeah.
How many years did you play?
Yeah.
None.
Right.
I didn't play in the big league.
Yeah.
But he played 13 years, and it wasn't like Pete Rose destroyed his career, and they say, well, they've got investments in these players. Well, they've always had investments in these players. It's just more astronomical. But I don't like the replays on the scoreboard. I don't like the box. First of all, the box, in reality, it's got to be 3-dimensional.
Yeah,
It's
just
got to
on the
go
plate.
over the plate,
Yeah.
through the batter's strike zone.
And
And the
box
box is just
better.
it's clipping it. And you know what? The box is not reflective of the batter's height.
It is not.
strike zone.
It is not.
And so I was talking to Sean Pender about that from the Reds, and he goes, "We got the box. They got it 3 days a week in AAA because everybody's now they play 6 games a week, every level, and so they do the box the first 3 days, and then the umpires call the strike zone the next 3 days. But it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming, and
I don't mind the appeal system as much.
I think you should only use appeals for 3 plays.
Yeah.
3 plays: fair, foul, catch, no catch, and home runs.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, as a hitting coach, right, I wouldn't mind if a guy could tap his helmet and then we can correct one an inning. Like, just because that one pitch changes in that bat so much, if the pitcher gets ahead.
My thing about the well, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
with that, but the biggest thing is if you look at the umpiring today in the big leagues and
Yep.
pro ball in general, compared to major league umpires in the 60s and 70s, it is a lot better. It really is. And I mean, I'm watching World Series games on ESPN Classic, and guys are taking the ball out of the strike zone. The umpire's calling it a strike, but they all have reputations being great umpires. I think I really, if you look back, starting probably in the 80s, the umpiring got really better as far as strike zone is concerned because they emphasized see the ball through the strike zone, say to yourself what was it, give that little computer in your head a chance to think about it, and take that 1 second, and then make up your mind. And even the Dave Palone play where Pete Rose got ejected. This is in the 80s. The announcer said he delayed his call. And if you look at the play, he was actually quick compared to today.
Yeah.
And he didn't delay his call. Nick Osaski just screwed up because he was arguing with him while the guy was scoring from second base.
Yeah.
But I think the umpiring is better today, even though I don't know any of the umpires now. I used to know them all, but
Yeah.
it's a different animal, it really is.
So obviously you're on the board of the Greater Dayton Baseball Hall of Fame, which is really, really cool. Really, really cool. I know Steve Dinneman from NKU is going in, which is really awesome. Steve is, I consider, a friend, one of our former players, Evan Price.
He's really excited too.
Yeah, Steve's great, man. So
Great
tell
guy.
us a little bit about what goes into the being on the board with the Greater Dayton Baseball Hall of Fame, and what that process is like when you guys consider people.
When we started this in 2016, we went to the very last DABC Hall of Fame banquet. And they were ending theirs because they ran out of people to put in, basically. And so there was 5 of us sat down one day and said, there's a lot of people that need to be honored. And so we came up with criteria that would encompass basically it's high school and or college plus summer baseball. And we put the summer baseball in there for people just like Jerry Sayers. He's got 7 World Series now, but when we put him in at 6 as a manager. Scotty Davis played at Stebbins, played at Sinclair, played at Ohio State. Scotty was a 4-tool player. He could hit, run, throw, and field, and he was the first guy on the field when a fight broke out, and he was the last guy to leave. He was the ultimate team player, and there's no Hall of Fame for him. And so basically, we started this Hall of Fame to honor all those people. And when we started this thing in 2017, we took 18 months to get together. And we decided we were going to do it the right. We started with 1 page of people. And now we got 5.5 pages. And it's turned into this great event. It really has. I mean, we go Facebook Live. One year we had Kevin Costner introduce Jeff Green from Bethel, who played at Toledo, got drafted by the Braves. He was in the movie Bull Durham. And on a whim, I sent his production company a letter stating we're putting in Jeff Green. He was in the movie Bull Durham. We've had people in the past make videos who couldn't come in to introduce the inductee. And I said, would you be able to do that for us? If not, I understand. And I'm thinking, I'm going to waste the stamp. I think there's no way I'm going to get a response. 2 weeks later, I get an email from his executive secretary. And she said, can you fill us in? And he made the video while he was on location filming the movie Horizon in Utah. And it's on our Facebook page. You can watch it. It's outstanding. He spent a minute and 45 seconds. He put time, effort, and thought into it, and it was just fabulous. We surprised Jeff. He didn't know what was going on, and it was awesome. And then we put in Pete Rose last year. He played in Dayton, Ohio, 1960.
Yeah.
He hit 600 for the Frisch's big boy team. And Pete called me after one of your games last year. I'm in the parking lot, and I went, no way. And I picked it up, and he pronounced my name absolutely correct. And we were working something out, and then he passed away. And so we got Hal McCoy to be his acceptance.
Yeah.
And so, but it's turned into this wonderful event. We don't charge a lot of money. We have a covered dish, and all we try to do is make expenses meet. That's all we want to do. You know, some people want to make a profit and all that. You know, they go, once you have a golf alley, whatever. I said, listen, we just try to get donations. We have a donation box there at the banquet, and we have it at Alter High School, and it's turned into this wonderful event. And we're pushing on a decade next year. So it's been a wonderful event. It really has.
That's outstanding.
Yeah, it seems like it definitely.
We're at like, we're going to be at 65 people this year now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was my follow-up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, we're putting in Steve Yeager this year. He called me, we got a hold of him and putting him in. So that's pretty cool. And he says, if you can't make it in, you're he's 76 years old, and he's still a scout for the Dodgers. And so he says, if you can't make it in, he's going to make a video for us. So that's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
So I would like to take something maybe from your Hall of Fame. I mean, every time you're inducted in something like that, usually you get to, have a speech or whatever. Yeah. What is it, something that you try to leave on your, leave like a lasting mark on your people and throughout your speeches?
Basically, I thank my family. You know, you got nothing without family.
Absolutely. 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 Well, that's incredible. Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's fun because, some of the guys that you put in, like
they go up and they cry.
Oh, absolutely. Some of the guys you put in they mean the world to me. Jerry Sawyer's taught me everything I know, or most of it, right? And I think I like Steve Dinneman. So, I mean, obviously you've done a bunch of our games, and we got our base running system. This year, Steve sent me all of NKU's charts.
Wow.
So now our guys are doing charts in the dugout that Steve sent me. We put our logo on it, but we use all the NKU's charts for our base running and all that stuff. Cool. And, and you know what I mean? And so it's just like, it's cool because of all of that. And you guys do an incredible job. And
for us, it's all about numbers. And for the Greater Dayton Baseball Hall of Fame. And we're not putting in somebody because they're our friend or they're on their deathbed. And I've known Hall of Fames that have done that.
Yeah.
And I talked to one guy, and he quit a board of one of the high school Hall of Fames because they wanted to put in this guy because he was on his deathbed. He only won 2 letters in baseball or whatever it was. And it's all about numbers. You got to have numbers. And, I've had 3 different people. One guy wanted to nominate his brother, and he won 2 letters in high school. And that was it. And we need some substance to the resume, and we got a nomination for him. And that was another thing, Dave Kramer said, Jeff, you need a nomination for him because people would send in stuff and there's nothing there. And I said, you got to be more specific. So we got a nomination for him. And it's just been a blast. We give lapel pins out tonight to the Hall of Famers so they can put it on their sports coat. So they're being represented as a Greater Dayton Baseball Hall of Famer. So we give those out at the night of the banquet. But it's just turned into a really special event. It really has. I mean, we go Facebook Live for the guys that can't come in. Mark Owens lives in Hawaii, so he watches every year, and so it's just been a really special event.
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm glad that you guys value that. I mean, because anybody can go into a class and be a part of a group project and get an A, but stats reflect effort.
Well, yeah, that's how I look back at my son. We played at Carroll. He was on the varsity bowling team for 4 years. He was on the JV the first year, lettered his second year, didn't letter his junior year, and lettered his senior year because it's all about numbers.
Yeah.
And if you didn't reach that number, you weren't going to get a letter. And that's the way the golf coach was. My son played on the golf team. He never got to play in the sectional tournament because his stats weren't the 5 best. There were 5 other guys ahead of him.
Yeah.
And so, numbers are the great, what they call it, equalizer.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we ask everybody that comes on the pod the same question to end. Obviously, you're very entwined into the game at all levels. If there's one thing you could change about the game as it's currently constructed to help improve it at any level, what would that thing be?
Number one, I think all games need to be 7 innings. I mean, even in pro ball, because Major League Baseball, they've lost a lot of people because it's. I think I believe Major League Baseball is hemorrhaging money, even though they've got all this TV money, because they eliminated rookie ball as being affiliated with Major League Baseball, and I even heard rumblings that they're going to restructure again. Tom Nichols got me hooked up with Bally's, and so I can go online and watch every minor league baseball game that's on TV that night. And I'm sitting there on a Sunday watching the Dragons on the road, and I'm going through all these games, and there's nobody in the stands. And I'm looking at Eric Davis in the press box one night. I said, "Hey, what do the Reds think about the Dragons?" He goes, "Jeff, look out here. It's Tuesday night. There's 8,000 people out here on a Tuesday night." He goes, "Nowhere in minor league baseball do you have 8,000 people in the stadium on a Tuesday night." And so, I don't know why baseball has fell from being the sport in America. I know football is number one, but it's just kids aren't playing baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just not playing baseball. I go around and look at all these ballparks I used to play when I was a kid, and all the fields are overgrown with weeds. And I don't know how you bring that back, but it has to be to a point where you have to make it accessible for kids, and you got to make it reasonable. It doesn't cost too much to play baseball. That's a myth. Because I went to Play It Again Sports and got my son's cleats for him, and got a glove, and got his belt, and his pants, and all this stuff. So that's a myth, and kids aren't playing because they see I think they see a quicker way to the major leagues in football and basketball than they do baseball, because they don't want to spend 8 years in the minor leagues learning how to be a baseball player.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely a sport that requires effort and longevity of care.
Yeah.
So you hit it right on the money. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. Jeff, I just wanted to go ahead and thank you again for
Thanks
coming
for
on.
having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
Heavily enjoyable. I hope that our audience enjoys it as much as we have.
And don't yell at me.
So if you guys want to see more stuff like this, make sure you follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And to never miss a notification on our social media accounts, you can go ahead and search us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All right, boys.
It's America's favorite pastime. Come on, let's have a good time slinging seeds. Yeah, we're just slinging seeds.